Hey everybody, welcome back to another review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. This is day 6, I believe, of the week of what I've seen lately. And this one's an interesting one because I'm a big fan of Paul Thomas Anderson, and I haven't seen this film. The film being Boogie Nights, which was written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, and I really love his work. I think that he's done many great pieces. There Be Blood, which I like, but I'm not as fond of it as many other people are. There are a lot of people who really enjoy that film. I find it to be okay. Great performance at the center of it, obviously, with Daniel Day-Lewis, but not anything extremely notable. And then you get films like The Master, which I think is a brilliant piece of work, and I would say equally to that it would be Phantom Thread, which was also terrific, and Punch Drunk Love. So he's done a fair share of very good pieces, and he has a style to his films that I feel very much his own. It feels very much of his own voice and his own character. With Boogie Nights, as the story is, for anybody who's seen it, is, I would say, basically like a Star is Born type story where somebody gets dragged into the industry, they reach certain kinds of fame and success, even though it's like a false sense of success and security. There's a downfall period, and then they eventually find that type of compromise. But with this, the added layer to it, the added texture to it, is that the industry that this person resides in, that person that we follow being Mark Wahlberg, he gets caught up in the porn industry, and he gets affiliated and introduced to a bunch of players: Burt Reynolds, Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly, at one point Philip Seymour Hoffman. So it's a big cast of people, and I think that some of those ideas that Paul Thomas Anderson always implements in his films, his style, his voice, I feel like is somewhat present throughout the film. But mostly, what the film's occupied with is a lot of notable influences, particularly that of Martin Scorsese, because it takes a page from Scorsese, absolutely, with films like Goodfellas absolutely being an influence on the film. There's a hint of Tarantino, I would say, in there as well, but mostly the film is occupied with the mindset of Scorsese and less of Anderson. And for that, it's a film that I would say bears a lot of things that I like and don't like about Scorsese. For starters, it does have a consistent flow. It doesn't feel like you're losing much interest. I mean, my interest did kind of wane at certain points, but that's mainly due to my issues, which we'll get to in a second. But for the most part, anyway, I felt that it was a consistent flow, and I felt myself, in general, engaged with the material. I also would say that the performances in general are good. I don't believe for one second that Mark Wahlberg was a 17-year-old. I just did not buy into that at all. But I think that all the performances in general are good. Nothing super spectacular or notable, but fine nonetheless. And I think that its exaggerated qualities, which do again echo that of Scorsese when it comes to his films, particularly that of Goodfellas and other films that he's done. I feel like the exaggerated qualities, the kind of the outrageous, premise at the center of it, it does lend itself to having real laughs. There are points where I was actually genuinely laughing because of how outrageous it is, because of how silly it is. And, with that, it earns a few chuckles and a few genuine, laughs because of that. But on the other side of that, because of how outlandish things are and because of how ridiculous, the idea of porn is just ridiculous. There does come points where where he does want to be, because one of the things about Anderson is also that he's very detail oriented. So he also tonally likes to also represent the culture or the industry that he is making a comment on. And with that, when you do, it's a big chunk of the film, I would say. You get a lot of the time sensibilities that do feel pornographic, and if anyone who knows pornographic sensibilities, it's not characterful or colorful. It's just exploitative and just I wouldn't say inappropriate, but just questionable at best. Because a large portion of the film is like that's why I equate it to a Scorsese film, because if anything it would it would be it would remind me of stuff like future work of his, like Wolf of Wall Street, where it's like there's an emphasis on the horniness, on the raunchiness, on the behavior of these characters, and with that great emphasis, you just get a lot of time dedicated to that, and it just kind of gets a little gross, a little bit disgusting. I just found myself just kind of like, okay, sure, yeah, okay, cool, because then it becomes almost structurally like it would porn, where it's like the film is just making excuses to get to the next sex scene, to get to the next sexual situation, and it's just that's when it comes across to me like, oh, I don't think that this is, like for a big chunk of my time I was just kind of like, huh, really, like that's how we're approaching this. But at the same time, like I say, because of how upfront it is and how turned on the film is, just to put it bluntly, there are laughs that can be discovered from that because of how aggressively it pushed itself in that direction. But what you don't get is likable characters. I did not care for any one of the characters. I found them completely unlikable, and I just never bought into the sympathy that the movie's trying to present with these characters. Like, it's just characters that all are delusional. They're, egotistical. They are, because ultimately what the film is about, it is about how it can get seduced and participate in such an industry, and what kinds of people occupy that industry. And the kinds of people that occupy it is, well, these self-centered, these, just fool themselves, kinds of people, sluts, you could, all the terms out there that you would find on the streets. That's the kind of people that occupy this business, and the film shows that. And I think that where the film starts to actually become gradually more interesting for me was how it chooses to conclude, because a good portion of the film is kind of stewed in a fantastical setting, like I said, and with more Scorsese elements, where it's like, here's all the raunchiness, here's all the glamour, here's all the bing bang boom, and then there's that down period that happens in some of Scorsese's work, or a lot of Scorsese's work, where reality starts to take over. And when the reality takes over in this, that's when it became a lot more interesting for me, and it became a lot more captivating. And it made me wonder why the film didn't just be that, the aftermath of such a thing, rather than showing us all of it, because I just didn't find it as interesting until we got to that point. Because it's not to say it's not fun, or to say it's not funny. I mean, it definitely does have those marks, but it's not as investing as many other people have made it out to be. Because I've heard about this film for many years, so finally checking it out, I'm not really sure about what all the fuss is about. Because as from where I come up on it, it's a film that I think that it has a good energy at it. I think that it has good influences surrounding it. Like, I like the fact that it plays more or less like a Scorsese film. But because of that, because of leaning on those influences, it then takes on the issues of what Scorsese brings to the table, which is sometimes there can be a little bit more extreme elements, or a little bit more exaggerative qualities. There's also some disbelief that has to be taken with some sequences. One in particular involving Don Cheadle, towards the end, where apparently someone is coming to rob a place, and it just gets a little bit silly at that particular point. But more to the point, it's a movie, the reason why the characters didn't work for me is because they don't really necessarily have an arc either, because the movie tells you up front who they are. These are all losers, and at the end of the day, they are still losers. There's no real growth, and to some measure, it kind of works in its favor having the characters stay in the same place. It makes a certain comment on that. But I wish that there was more of a progression. I wish that they went outside of the industry, versus ultimately coming back. Um, so I enjoyed its sensibilities to a point. Like I said, like I liked it more when it became more dark and became more serious. But for a good hour and a half, I just found it to be, I wouldn't say annoying or anything, but just, expecting and familiar. Like there's a rhythm, there's a beat that I was picking up, and it just became a bit just, because like there's like another sex scene, and I get it, it's porn, I get it, but just because we're residing in the porn industry, I don't need to be feeling those sensibilities for a lot of that time. I just don't, because it does kind of lean into those sensibilities more than I think it should. But as it stands, I think that it's fine. It's definitely not my favorite of Anderson's films. It seems to be a lot of other people's favorite Anderson film. Mine still would be The Master, but what I love about The Master is that The Master progresses. With Boogie Nights, it kind of just stays within the same ideas, and that to me was kind of the issue of the film, was that it just kind of resides within the same problems, within the same ideas, and within that, like I said, there is something of a comment, there is something of a meaning to the film, but that only comes into play by the last hour, where this first hour and a half you're just kind of being washed over by a certain kind of sensibility that sometimes works, and then sometimes I say leans a little too heavy. So it's fine. I find it to be fine, but definitely not, I would say, one of Anderson's best. But that's my thoughts on Boogie Nights. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very controversial opinion, because I know Boogie Nights is hailed by a lot of people that love Boogie Nights, but wasn't really big on it. But you guys know your thoughts on Boogie Nights if you guys have seen it. And yeah, that's gonna be it for me, guys. We got one more day to go, so stay tuned tomorrow. And the next film I believe is gonna be a fun one. So, but that's gonna be it for me, guys. So let me know your thoughts about Boogie Nights in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching. And like I said in one video, this camera, like everything, we will. The quality of the videos will eventually progress. For now, you'll be seeing phone quality and camera quality, simultaneously. But eventually, we will be getting to better quality. We'll be using this camera moving forward. So, but just, because I recorded a lot of videos, so you'll see like dips in quality throughout. But just a FYI. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys tomorrow in the last video of our film week. So I'll catch you guys then. Bye.